Okay, so this first of all announcement. This is likely going to be the last Stoic Jew Shiur of the summer because next summer is my last week in Seattle before I head back to New York and start the school year. And so this was only going to be a summer shiur anyway. And hopefully after this we'll get back to the regular like recording of Stoic Jew podcast episodes. But I do plan to resume my year-round Wednesday night shiur on Tehillim at the same time after Labor Day. I'm not sure if it's going to be like the week of Labor Day or the week after that because we're starting high school and then starting yeshiva. So I'll, you know how to find my shiurim. I'll post it in my content group. Also tonight, I would like to end at 9, which I guess theoretically should be easier because there's only 4 of us right now. And it's also a very short entry. So this is one of these things where I'm worried, like, are we going to have enough to talk about? But I guess we'll find out. Okay. Quick review of last time because last chapter, because last chapter was 2 weeks ago and he kind of references it here. So we're not going to read the whole thing, just the Waterfield translation. So last time he said, God's works are filled with providence. The works of fortune aren't independent of nature or of the interlacing and intertwining of things under the direction of providence. It is the source of everything, including necessity and the well-being of the universe, the whole of which you are a part. What is good for every part of nature is what is supplied by the nature of the whole and what preserves the whole. And what preserves the whole is the changing of the compounds, no less than the changing of the physical elements. Be content with these doctrines, make them your constant guiding principles. Get over your thirst for books so that you don't die grumbling, but with true serenity and with heartfelt gratitude to God. Okay, I'm not even going to bother to try to reconstruct what we got out of this, because I feel like then we'll just spiral back into this chapter. So with this in mind, let's now read the new chapter. And we'll do what we always do. We'll read the 3 translations and then we'll focus on the 3rd. So translation 1, George Long. Remember how long thou hast been putting off these things, and how often thou hast received an opportunity from God, and yet dost not use it. Thou must now at last perceive of what universe thou art a part, and of what administrator of the universe thy existence is an efflux, and that a limit of time is fixed for thee, which if thou dost not use for clearing away the clouds from thy mind, it will go, and thou wilt go, and it will never return. Okay, a little archaic. Let's do the next translation, Farquharson. Remember how long you have been putting off these things, and how many times God has given you days of grace, and yet you do not use them. Now it is high time to perceive the kind of universe whereof you are a part, and the nature of the governor of the universe from whom you subsist as an effluence, and that the term of your time is circumscribed, and that unless you use it to attain calm of mind, time will be gone, and you will be gone, and the opportunity to use it will not be yours again. And the final translation, Waterfield. Remember how long you've been putting this off, and how often God has given you due dates of which you've not taken advantage. It's high time now for you to recognize what kind of universe you're a part of, and what kind of universal directing power you're an emanation of, and that a limit has been set on your time. And if you don't use it to dispel the mists, it will pass, and you will pass, and the opportunity won't come again. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste these translations into the chat so you can consult them at your leisure. I cannot get all of them in. I can't even get 2 of them in. Hold on. Okay, so we'll start with the first translation, then the second translation, then the 3rd translation. Okay, so let us, let's put this over here. Okay, so, that did not work out. What happened to the formatting? Hold on. That also didn't work out. Okay. Okay, so what are the questions here? Yeah, Reza?
So it seems that the advice being given is to remember who you are, and once you bring your mind in line with knowing the truth of who you are, then you won't want to procrastinate anymore. Kind of like something about prayer I've been learning. But when you remember who God is, you don't really have to, pursue your silly one.
Interesting. Yeah. So what I find interesting about the way that you led is that it is I perceived it as the opposite. Again, what you said? I mean, not the opposite direction. I mean, I guess it's a symbiotic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You
So
said when you remember
Robin
who
says
you
it's high
are.
time now for you to recognize what kind of universe you're a part of,
Yeah.
and what kind of universal directing power you're an emanation of. And once you realize what you are, then you won't want to procrastinate anymore, because you'll see that you are finite, and that you have, like, you're from something that's so great, you won't want to waste any life you've been given.
Yeah. So to make sure I understand you, are you giving an interpretation or you're asking a question?
I'm giving an interpretation.
Okay, so let me list the question that you are attempting to answer, and then we'll revisit it when we try answering the questions. So the question here is like, what I guess what all right, how
What
does
argumentative tactic is being used to
yeah, I was
get you
gonna
to
I was
stop
thinking even
procrastinating?
I was thinking even broader here. Okay, like, and we'll break it down. But what is Marcus trying to accomplish here, and how does he envision this will be accomplished? Okay, and that kind of is like encompasses, you know, the activity he's doing is he's reminding himself, and then he's making an argument in this. But like, how does it all go down? So we'll keep it that way. And I guess I will add on here what is actually. Let me make this a separate question here. What is his argument? How what are the steps, and how does one flow to the next? Yeah, David.
Methodology question on what you were
Yeah.
just doing there, where you were taking the question or what we have been saying, and then making it like as broad as you can to encompass as much as you can.
Yeah.
So insofar as I know we like asking pointed questions too, and specific questions that we can like very much get direction from there. And I feel like broader questions usually don't necessarily help push us forward in that. So
Yeah.
when you do decide on a broader versus a more like what is your thought process to decide that you're going to go for a broader question versus a more specific question?
Yeah. All right, good. So that's a good question. So I'm gonna go ahead. Hopefully you'll indulge me, those of you who have heard this before. But I feel like this is good to review every once in a while of what makes a question a good question, right? So the two examples that I like to use are the Haggadah, the four sons in the Haggadah. So you have the wise son and the simple son. The wise son says, what are the testimonies, statutes, and decrees, testimonies, decrees, and judgments that Hashem your God commanded you. Hashem our God commanded you. And then the simple son just says, what is this? Okay. And what we're doing is we call the wise son because we see evidence of wisdom in his question. And we call the simple son because he's asking in a simple way. Right. So I'm just going to go over this really quickly because I think, this is just, a review. But so the answer, I think, is that a question is not just an expression of your ignorance and you're seeking to alleviate your ignorance. A question is a tool for obtaining knowledge. So what makes something a better or worse question is, are you formulating your question in a way that will lead to the most or the deepest or the most accurate knowledge? And what makes a worse question is one that is not like suited for that, and so the example, again, this is from Rabbi Chase's methodology tapes. I don't remember which tapes, but the example that he gives is with with Aristotle and the different generations of offspring, where he had he saw a set of like I guess a black parent, say a black mother who gave birth to a white child who gave birth to a black child, and instead of just saying what's up with that, he said, where was the blackness in the white child? So that's a pointed question because it's pointing to exactly, he knows that the blackness must be somewhere, must have gotten from the grandparent to the to the grandchild through the white child. But the question is like, where is that blackness if it's not showing up in the skin color? So that was a very, very good question because it pointed exactly to what you need to know. The other example that I like giving is, I heard this from Rabbi Moshe Ben Chaim or I read this in an article that he wrote of, you see your friend pull up with a flat tire and you say, like, what happened to your tire? Well, that's a very loose question. You know what happened to the tire. You know that it got popped. And you know the tires get popped when they run over something that is sharp. I know that's not the only way the tires pop. You could break the seal or whatever, but for the purposes of the example, if you said, what sharp object did you run over that popped your tire, that's a more accurate question. Okay. So to answer David's question was, why did I make the narrower question into the broader question? And how do I determine whether to go broader or go more specific? The answer is intuition. Is the I don't think there's a formula. I think that sometimes you just sense that, like, if your sights are too narrow, you might miss a larger context. And if you look at that same narrow point within the larger context, then you'll see more. You'll see more of the thing, or it'll be more accurate. But sometimes looking at the broad picture means that you're not being clear. And so I guess maybe if I had to like do two variables here, the variables I look for are, I guess, context and clarity. So like sometimes the bigger picture will give you more context. And if you look at it too small, then you're shutting out relevant context, but sometimes going too big is you're going too broad and you're not even paying attention to the details, and then you're missing out on stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Okay, Michael.
So he started off saying remember. So how, I guess, what does that mean? And also, how does in the first paragraph we did, he said like to tell it to yourself every morning. So how exactly is this different from that?
Okay, good. So when he says remember, what does that mean? How different is this? Remember? I guess not. How different is this? How, if at all, is this remember different from begin the day by saying to yourself? And didn't he in 3, did he also start off with let these be continually your doctrines, right? Make them your constant guiding principles. Make these your constant guiding principles. So like, are these all just different ways to get him to remind himself of this, or of these points, or is remember different? Or I guess, are each of them different? Yeah. Again, I'll say, I know I've said this throughout, but like it is hard when you're reading someone's personal diary, like, my intuition is telling me that like you can't really necessarily read too much into these things, but it's still a worthwhile question to ask. Yeah. And I think especially in your first question, what does this mean? I'll add to that, like, in what sense, would he be prone to forgetting? Yeah, Michael.
What exactly has he been putting off?
Yeah. Okay. What exactly has he been putting off? Yeah. What does it say here? Let me just look at the 3 translations together. Remember how long you've been putting off these things? Okay, so they all say pretty much the same thing, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, David.
What does bringing in the context of the universe and the creation add to his point?
Yeah. Right. So I'm gonna put that under his. I'll also make a new question. It's gonna be too much if I make it into sub questions. So what? How does recognizing the kind of universe and his I guess the fact that he's an emanation from, I guess that he's an emanation. How does recognizing the kind of universe and the fact that he's an emanation contribute to his argument? Yeah. And by the way, I'm not going to go too into depth on like what it means that he is an emanation or an efflux, or what was the other one? Effluence. I think that was just their view of what the soul was, that they viewed the soul as a material thing. And I think in their metaphysics, they thought that the soul was like, an emanation of the universe. Because I think they also talk about, there's some weird Stoic idea of immortality where like your soul like goes back and is a part of the universe or something like that. So I think for our purposes, we can ignore like the particulars, but the question is why do you have to bring it up? Yeah, Reza.
The idea of due dates, God has
Yeah.
given you due dates. Does that have a significance to Stoicism? Is that a concept in Stoicism?
Okay, right. So we have here the three translations: an opportunity from God, days of grace, and due dates. Those are three very different translations here. Okay, so what does it mean that God has given you opportunities, days of grace, or due dates? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Reza, you have another question? That's okay now. Michael? Oh, sorry, Reza, yeah.
I didn't have another question, but just continuation. So would that sort of be like a little superstition that, like, I know sometimes I'll think, oh, I have to have this thing done by this date or this time or this age, and then it's like not real. It's just based in like a
so what is the nature of these deadlines? You know, is he claiming that these are, you know, objective realities, and if so, on what basis? And then or is he using this, you know, I guess metaphorically? And if so, what is the metaphor? Yeah, what is the, you know, well, why this metaphor, I guess? Why this metaphor? Yeah. Okay, Michael.
In the last line, so what exactly are these mists that are going to pass? And then also he seems to be drawing some sort of a parallel between the mist itself and then the opportunity that they're all going to go away.
Yeah.
So what exactly?
Okay, that's good. So you notice, I don't know if you noticed in the translation here, I think 2 out of 3 of them did the same. So you have Long, who says, if thou dost not use for clearing away the clouds from thy mind, which is like if you don't use it to dispel the mists. But then Farquharson says, unless you use it to attain calm of mind. That, to me, that sounds different. I mean, unless you're going to say that the mists are like just the opposite of calm of mind. Either way, we'll ask the question, which is, what are these mists or clouds? What do you say? Clouds of mind? Clouds in the mind, or opposite of calm of mind? Yeah, calm of mind. Oops, sorry, of mind. Yeah, I guess what is their cause and how are they dispelled? And then what parallel is he making between the passing of the wait, was it the passing of it will pass? What's the it? If you don't use it to dispel the mist, or your soul, right? So what is the
wait, I thought it was the time.
Oh, it's high time. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Wait, so then what's the difference between the time and the opportunity? Or I guess that time and then no other opportunity will come. Okay, fine. So passing of the time, the self, and the opportunity. Yeah. Yeah, David.
So what? Like, what is lost if he doesn't use the time, given this tight timer that he's setting on himself?
That is a good question. Yeah, and that's a type of question where, like, I don't know if you know, like, does this we have an answer in Judaism to that question, you know. If you don't use your time well, so then you're not living according to the way that you were designed in this world and not getting all the benefits of that for yourself and bringing about those benefits for, like, the Jews and humanity, like all this knowledge and righteousness and kindness and justice and all that stuff, all that good stuff, so you're not doing that. And you're not living in line with your potential as a human being. And then also we hold by an afterlife where it's going to affect your soul in that eternal afterlife, but in his framework, what's so bad? Like, what is he concerned about? So what happens if he doesn't do these things? What is his motive in urging himself here? Yeah. What if you like misty minds? feel like those are the main questions. I mean, I think a lot of the question is contained in like, what is he doing and how is he doing it? Yeah, Michael.
At the beginning of the second sentence, what does it mean it's high time now? Like, was it not high time before?
Right.
What's happening now that makes it high time?
Yeah, it's fine. Both of them say high time. Oh, does Long not even say that? Now it's high time for you to recognize. Right. Yeah, I want to put this in. Yeah, I guess I'll put this. Where does it show up in the thing? What is he putting out? Opportunities of grace. It's high time. Okay, yeah, so it's after the days of grace thing. Okay, so the question here is, what does he mean by it's high time? Is like, again, is this just a way of urging himself, or is he making reference to some objective reason why now is the time, but it wasn't the time in the past, right? Like, in other words, like in the last, we saw, it was in the last one, when he talked about how he's an old man, or that was the one before that. Earlier, I think there was one before that. He said, "You're an old man now." That's referring to time in terms of saying, like, yeah, this, I might not have used the same argument when I was young, but I am using it now. So is that here, or is he just saying no? Just use the present while it's here. Yeah, David.
Yeah, if you could help me with formulating this question.
Yeah.
Does there exist, when he says that you've not taken advantage of these due dates, does there exist like a fulfillment of you have done what you are doing, or is this more like a mindset that cannot be ever fulfilled?
Right, that's a great question here. Okay, so I'm gonna put this question over. Yeah, see, I don't know if that's a question on the due dates or a question on the whole task he's trying to accomplish, on like the remembering. So I'm gonna put it. I'll err on the side of broad and put it up in our first question here, which is this even accomplishable? Is is there an endpoint at which he can say, mission accomplished? Or is this something that is, that he must constantly strive for during his whole life? And then either way, will he be fighting for this his whole life for the same reason that necessitates his saying, remember? In other words, maybe you can finish this goal, but if he has to tell himself today, remember this, then it seems like he's always going to be like forgetting, and he's going to be in a perpetual state of forgetting. And that's why he needs to talk about this, not because it's unachievable, but because practically speaking, he can't get there. It's not likely for him to get there. Yeah, Reza?
He seems to be insinuating that decisiveness is a virtue here, and I'm wondering if what would the opposite be of that state of being, and
okay,
why would
good.
He see that as less virtuous than decisiveness?
Okay. So I want to put that question. We didn't actually even ask why he's putting this off, right? So you're saying that, or you're suggesting that the reason why is like an indecisiveness. But it might be other causes. So let's ask the question first: why has he been putting this off? And what is the opposite quality that would prevent him from doing so? Okay, so is it, indecisiveness versus decisiveness? Is it, alacrity versus laziness? Is it ignorance versus knowledge? Something else? Yeah.
What does alacrity mean?
It's the only word I know for the Hebrew word zrizus. It's very hard to do. to translate that. I know a lot of people translate it as like zeal, but zeal to me is like a sort of like a culty type term. You know, it's basically when you are enthusiastic, energetic, and efficient in your work. Let's see how Google defines alacrity. Alacrity is brisk and cheerful readiness. Interesting. Yeah, I always think of it as a quality of like doing work. Oh, alacer, brisk. So our yeshiva needs to somehow make a reference to that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now have we gotten all the questions? I think so. All right, we can always add. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just paste these into the chat so we can have them to reference, and then we'll try to answer them. But we'll do what we've been doing before, which is not trying to like answer them one by one, but trying to get the main idea, and then hope. Oops, sorry. Oh no, I messed up the numbering. Hold on. This is 5. This is 6, and this is 7. Okay, and then we got 8, 9, and 10. Yeah, so we'll just try to get the main idea and then see where that takes us. 8, 9, 10. I gotta say, I am pleased that that these our analyses so far have yielded like there is like a unity in the journal entry that is understandable. Like it does not just seem like he's randomly like writing sentences and then like starting the next day that way, continuing off. Okay. All right, so what do we say here? What's the main idea here?
I'm still thinking.
All right, sure, yeah. Yeah, Michael?
I mean, just like a step is
Sure.
that I like in a lot of places he talks about the idea of like remembering that you're going to die and using your limited amount of time to use to make the most of it. So I think here it's an interesting spin on it, where you're saying it's not just that it's your own nature that you're going to die, you being a physical person, but you're living in a physical universe. But
You're back.
but you're living like.
Start the sentence again. That it's not just your own nature that you're going to die.
So like it's not just that you're physical, but that you're living in a physical universe, and it's the nature of the entire universe that demands that you have to like make the most of it.
Okay.
Like that's what I think he's saying. What kind of universe you're?
Okay. Okay. That's good. Yeah. All right. This is partially why I wanted to reread the last chapter, because when he says remember what kind of universe you're a part of. So I was thinking it's a universe of providence, because that was the main point of last time. But Michael's saying that it is also a universe of change, where you go and you decompose and you go back. Michael can hear. He looks a little frozen. Michael's saying that it's the universe of change, that you are gonna eventually die and then become part of that universe again. Okay, so let me just jot this down here. Okay, so these are main idea candidates. So Michael is saying that, oh man, I got distracted by the freezing. That it's not enough to remember that your life is finite, and will fine, I'll just say finite. But you must remember that this is the nature of the entire universe. Everything is only temporary, and all phenomena eventually change and go away. So the question now, so I think that is a good step. So now the question is, how does that change how does that make him get a move on? Like how is that a motivating factor here? Like in other words, I guess let's formulate it as like a more particular question, just because I think this will bring stuff out. What is the difference between telling himself, act now before you die, and act now because everything dies and goes away, right? Is that like the move that you're focusing on here? Is like he's saying like this is a trend, this is a universal trend. Okay, yeah, universal trend in the most true way possible, trend of the universe. Yeah, and I think, I don't know if you got this from here, Michael, but I think that is supported by the statement at the end, right? That it will pass, you will pass, the opportunity will come again. This focus on all these three things passing in the same way. Yeah, David?
Thought to that, that I think there's a certain feeling that if the universe is permanent and we are currently in the universe, that there is somehow a feeling that our universe is permanent. And if that's the case, then if your own universe is permanent, then you can go and do whatever you'd like at any time.
That's
And
really
the fact that everything that you're interacting with is not going to continue on, I think that helps. And I think one other thing is, it is easier to accept and recognize that something that's not attached to you and is not yourself, to see and to accept that that is finite than your own opinion.
Okay, all right. So let me give both these answers. Okay, so this is so David's answer number one is that if you fancied the universe as permanent, then it would be easy to imagine yourself having, I guess, like, it would be easy to like, I know this is not your words here, but leech off of that permanence. Actually, no, maybe anchor yourself, tether yourself. I use the word tether because we use the word tether yourself to that permanence, and convince yourself that you'll be around forever as well. Okay, but once you recognize that the universe is not permanent, then you lose any basis for having that anchor. So I experience. Okay, I'll give another analogy, and then say how I had this experience this week. So like, if you are, let's say you go on a 7-day cruise, there's no way you can tell yourself that, like, sometime in the remote unspecified future, then I will try scuba diving. Like, no, you actually have to plan it on one of those 7 days. Like, you can't just like push it into the future, and so I think we all go through that on a small level. I can speak from the perspective of summer vacation, where just last week I started a whole new project with one of my chavrusas, and then realized, like, oh, this week is the last week that we're going to be able to learn together, and it's like, in my mind, the summer was like this infinite thing, and therefore I could just like make this long-term plan. But now that I have a keen awareness that the summer is ephemeral, then I have to like recognize that my plans have to work within that those changing sands. So that's Doug's first answer. I think that's a really, really good like Oliver Berkman 4,000 weeks type insight there. Yeah, I gotta chew on that for a while. Okay, then the second answer is a Mishleic technique answer, which is that it's psychologically more difficult to think, I guess, to directly confront your own mortality. But if you recognize that everything in the universe eventually passes away, and you happen to be just one part of that universe, then it's a less direct confrontation. Yeah. Okay, I like your second answer is good, but I like your first answer better. I think it really is a good technique. Or not a good technique, a good trap. And this might also be why he has to remind himself, right? Because he is too easily, forgets these doctrines and thinks of the universe as something that's like permanent. So he has to remind himself that no, the universe is not permanent, and then that will help him. It'll undercut the basis of his own procrastination. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so have we explained every part of his argument? Not yet, right? So we have, remember how long you've been putting this off. I don't, regarding the question of why is he putting it off, I think it could be for many reasons, but I think if you're talking about someone who doesn't value this, then you can give a lot of answers, but he values it, and he was, but there's a lot of reasons. Like, he's a busy guy, right? He was running an emperor. he was, being besieged with war or whatever. There's, normal human laziness. There is, maybe indecisiveness goes into another rule. I don't think we need to necessarily say it's one reason, but I think they're all anchored in the excuse that I'll be able to do it later, and that's why he attacks that. Yeah, Michael.
So I like the answers David gave, but I want to give maybe another one.
Sure.
Is that when you recognize that everything around you is gonna go away, and then so on and so forth, the earth will be swallowed by the sun, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think there are two reactions. That either you could say, okay, so nothing I do matters, and then just ignore everything. But I think what he's doing here is, since he keeps focusing about God and about how you've been given this opportunity, he's saying that there's still a value, since there's this higher power who's given you this sort of it's not just it's not just that you're there, so you're there with a purpose, with some sort of a mission. So I don't know what he would say that mission is, but since you have that mission, it shows how important it is, because it doesn't have forever to happen. What you do actually does have a purpose, because it only has so much time before everything kind of goes away.
Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and take that down also. Okay. So we have, I'm just going to start a new, I know I'll just put this in the Q&A here. Okay. So the question here was what was the question?
You have it written up there.
No, but aren't we answering another feature of the question?
I was trying to answer this question.
Oh, you really? Okay. All right. That works also. Maybe I thought maybe the other question will come up. So the answer to this question is that if you think about the eventual, non-being of everything in the universe, this could lead to a bad YOLO reaction, where you say that nothing matters, and so I'll just as Ryan Moss would say, play tiddlywinks until I die. So to combat this, Marcus reminds himself of the of his noble purpose, which is made more precious by the fact that he only has a limited time to accomplish it. So he's drawing upon the impermanence of the universe to reflect on himself as a finite being with a finite, mission in a finite universe. That's yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing I guess in addition is that it's not just that he's relating his own impermanence to the universe's, but also that since the overall universe has a purpose, it only has so much time to do that, which adds more weight to his time there.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be if the universe itself was finite, right?
Well, I don't know if he thought that the Earth would go on forever, but I think we can say that knowing that.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So
would tell us it won't. I don't know.
Right. Because I think the argument doesn't work if you views the universe as eternal and then it's just the things in the universe are finite. Then I don't think that part of the argument works. But
you could say that the universe itself is eternal, but the Earth isn't, or whatever it is.
Right. But I don't think the differentiation between Earth and universe.
Okay, fine. So
yeah.
Okay, fine.
If the universe is only has a finite time to accomplish its purpose, and you're a part of that universe, then you should apply that reasoning and feeling to yourself. Yeah. Okay. What did I think you were answering? I thought there's a light bulb that went on that I thought this was a good answer to. Because we do this, it's my time for you to recognize what kind of universe you're part of. Okay, I don't really remember. Yeah, Reza.
All right. This is in response to the question under Michael's statement.
Yeah.
So I think there is an implication here that the experience of a single person, that just one human experience, has value, and that's different from the value of making decisions for the greater good of all humans. So in the act now before you die, it's so that you don't miss out on opportunities to experience something in your life that might further your own soul. And act now because everything dies and goes away. It's sort of like, if you don't take the opportunity to do these things that might help the greater good of your society, then that opportunity has passed and you're harming your society. So I think a further question is like the difference, or what is the value in the singular human experience of missed opportunity cost of like the lack of like a person making a choice, and what is the cost to your society when you fail to make a decision in your life?
Okay, so let me just ask. I like the idea. Are you getting that from his emphasis in like the previous chapters about like talking about the universal good, and then saying that he's probably thinking about it here, or are you seeing him referencing that idea here?
I think it's been in my mind since reading other things, but I thought about it because of the question that was asked, like the act now before you die and act now because everything dies. So I'm thinking about like the individual versus the collective.
Okay, so you know, we've seen Marcus caring about you know, using his own life for the greater good of the society, and by you know, aligning, I guess, you know, framing himself as part of the entire universe. He is reminding himself of that universal, that system, you know, system-wide framework, instead of just thinking of himself and his death, which would limit him by, like, you know, causing him to withdraw into that egocentric frame, you know, mode that he combats every morning. I know you didn't say that last part, but I think that fits in really well, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like a decision tree. It's like all the past
Yeah.
nodes of the decision tree fail to lead to more branches that would benefit society. But like there's a difference between the cost to him and the cost to society.
That's a good thought for thinking on the universal in general. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta think about that as well. That's really good. Okay. So what have we not explained here? Yeah, so maybe we should take a crack at figuring out why might he be talking about. Let's look at the translation here. What administrator of the universe is thy existence is an efflux, and the nature of the governor of the universe from which you subsist as an influence, and what kind of universe to recognize your emanation of. It's very hard to even tell what he's talking about here, right? Is he talking about God? Is he talking about Hashgacha? Is he talking about the universe? Yeah, Reza? Oh, David?
Well, it's a different read, so
Okay, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, you can do a different read.
Okay, I mean, actually, I think is going maybe exactly through that line, but I see him also talking about like the nature of man and that he should be like getting in line with his existence.
Yeah.
I see, I mean, definitely a lot of, as Michael was pointing toward, a lot of talk about the nature of the universe. But again, talking about the duties that he's not actually taking advantage of. And I think particularly that line you're just talking about, what kind of universal directing power you are an emanation of, that he should be not falling out of line with existence, which I think would just be kind of going about not thinking, but he needs to turn something on to then get to where he actually is supposed to be.
Okay, so this is just, so it's not the particular idea of your emanation of the universe, but it's the focusing on what is my nature.
Yes, and then he should be reminding himself to get back in line with that, because for whatever reason, he tends toward, I think people tend toward going in a different direction.
Right. Okay. So the question is, why does he remind himself that he's an efflux? Fun word to say. So the answer is, it's not that particular point that matters. It's that he has to remind himself of what his actual nature is. Okay, i.e., not body and not breath, right? Like we saw in the whatever the other one was. Okay, but a directing power, and that will help him keep his goals in sight of living according to that nature instead of slipping back into the antisocial egotistical mode. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah, Michael?
A bit of a different answer
Yeah,
is,
sure.
like you said, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what he's saying, but it seems like it would have the effect of reminding him that he's like dependent on his creator.
Mm,
And so like just like a servant is always going to be looking to figure out what the king wants and trying to implement that, so too he should be always trying to figure out like what is the opportunity his creator is allowing him.
right. Okay, so just like a servant is always cognizant of his master's will because he recognizes his dependence, so too Marcus recognizing his dependence on God will prompt him to think about God's will for him. Yeah, that's good. That definitely works for us, even if it doesn't work for Marcus. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that actually lends a different read to the bracha we say in the morning of Elokai, Neshamash Nasatabi Tahori. We talk about, my God, the soul that you gave me, and then we talk about, the fact that God gave you the soul and all the different parts of the soul. And I'm just thinking that recognition of your dependence in the morning leads directly into like thinking about what your role and your nature are. I mean, I just hadn't thought of it in those exact terms before. That's just another good idea to add to that bracha. Yeah. Okay. So now we have, remember how long you've been putting this off, what God is giving you due dates, which you're not taking advantage. In terms of the question about the due dates being objective or subjective, I mean, there is an objective due date. Like there is a day where your body is going to, like even in his framework, there's a day when your body's going to decompose, like that's, and that's objective in reality, even if you don't know it. But I think you could also use it as a subjective thing of like, recognizing that, you don't know how many opportunities God's going to give you to have another day. I associated to this halacha in the Rambam. I know there's two halachos here, and sorry, two places in the Rambam. He says, "Hoil urushus kol adam nesunalo." Since free choice is given to every person, Kamosha B'Yarno, as we explained, this is Rambam in Hilchos Teshuva, chapter 7. Yishtadal adam lasos teshuva. A person should strive to do teshuva, to repent, however you want to translate doing teshuva. V'linor kapav mechataav, and to cleanse his hands from his sins, kadesh yamus v'hu bal teshuva, so that he should die as someone who's done teshuva, and so that he should merit the world to come. And then he says, "La'olam yireh adam es atzmo kilu hu nota lamus." Person should always see himself as if he's leaning towards death. V'shema yamus b'shato. Maybe he'll die right now. V'nimtza omed b'chata'av, and he'll be stuck with his sins or his imperfections. Lefikach, therefore, yashuv mechata'av miyad. Therefore, he should do teshuva from his sins immediately. V'lo yomar, and he should not say kish'az ki nashuv. When I get older, I'll do teshuva. Right? This is pushing it off. Maybe he'll die before he gets old. Shlomo says, let your garments be white at all times, meaning you should be in a state where you have removed your imperfections, because you never know when you're going to die. Yeah. So this, I think this is an idea that, I mean, obviously the Stoics talk about a lot, but the Jews also talk about a lot, about doing teshuva before you die. But of course, we phrase it as doing teshuva, and it is interesting because, people translate teshuva as repentance, and people think of teshuva as undoing your sins or your errors. But the real concept of teshuva, as the Rambam explains, really is aligning yourself with a fundamental understanding of what reality is and what you are and what your place in reality is. So it is the thing that Marcus Aurelius is talking about. His type of tshuva is very similar to the type of tshuva we're talking about in Torah. It's just that he's not putting in terms of sin. He's putting in terms of like accomplishing your mission. Yeah, David?
I think together with that also, I mean, when we talk about like teshuva on the state of man and how we just by nature do a lot of things that are not, by being human, there are a lot of things we do that are not ideal for us. And I think then also constantly reshifting and reminding himself about that, that he will easily fall into that. I think that for ourselves, in the way that we talk about teshuvah in that regard also.
Right. Yeah, it's a constant threat that you could slip back and relapse there. Yeah. Okay. So it's high time for you now to recognize what kind of universe you're a part of and what kind of universal directing power you're an emanation of, and that a limit has been set on your time. Okay, that's just a reiteration of this part. That's fine. And if you don't use it to dispel the miss, it will pass. You will pass, and the opportunity will come in. I think dispelling the miss, we've also explained, is that it's all the miss that he's talked about before that caused him to forget everything. The egocentric, antisocial framework, and not thinking about that the universe is a universe of providence. All these things we've listed this whole time. And I also don't think, in terms of why he says remember here and like begin the morning by saying to yourself, seemed like begin the morning by saying to yourself is really preparing himself for his job, because he's talking about meeting all these people, whereas this is like a constant reminder, like in Judaism, you have 6 mitzvos that apply at all times. Anyone know all 6? Say for Chinuch, list them. You can say them out loud and we can list them.
Does he have Anochi?
Yeah. So, Anochi, which is like to know that God exists.
Yichud Hashem.
Yep. Yichud, which is to know that God is one.
Lo tatiru acharei levavchem.
Yep. Do not stray after your heart, which is to engage in fantasies, in theoretical speculation, or in to indulge. I don't want to define what is, but is that prohibition? Yeah.
Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem be there?
Yep. Love of God, fear of God.
Also a lotase?
It's a lotase.
Avodah Zarah?
Yep. Is lo yihye lecha. Lo yihye lecha. Okay, so not to believe in other gods. Yeah, so these mitzvahs apply all the time. Okay. But then we also have daily mitzvahs, like saying the Shema in the morning and the evening. So I'd say that the analogy is like his first reminder, begin the morning by saying to yourself, is like is analogous to the Shema. Like he reminds himself at the beginning of the day, because that's when he's about to set out on his task. But this is really more like at all times, no matter whether you're with other people or not. You should remember this idea because it's about what your nature is and your and your limited time. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's right. To dispel this, it will pass, and you will pass, and the opportunity will come again. And we explain why he uses the parallelism. Okay, good. So we explained every part. I want to just bring up another idea, which I thought would come up, but I just going off of why would a person procrastinate? I think one of my favorite procrastination psukim is in Mishlei 10. This is not Mishlei, this is Bereshis. Actually, I have a translation here. Mishlei 10. I don't know what it's 10:7. All right, hold on. Just gonna look it up here. Mishlei 10. Nope, 10:5. Oger bakaitz ben maskil nirdam bakach ben mevish. One who gathers in the summer is an intelligent son, but an embarrassing son, or one who is asleep at the harvest season, is an embarrassing son. So it doesn't use the words lazy and not lazy, but it puts it in terms of the social ramifications. And so the main idea that I like for this one is, what is the embarrassing son's mistake? Is that he basically doesn't recognize that reality is full of windows of opportunity that open and close. All opportunities in life have an opening and a closing. Okay. And some of them are shorter than others. Some of them have to do with how old you are. Some of them have to do with what life situation you're in. Some of it has to do with just being alive. So the mistake is to think that reality will just operate on your schedule, instead of recognizing, no, reality has windows that open and close, and I have to, act within those windows. Otherwise, the opportunity will be too late. Like the fantasies, I'll just get another opportunity. But as he says here, the opportunity won't come again. And yeah, and that's my I know you've probably all three of you heard this already, but the my strategy for living each day as if it's your last. The problem is if you actually live that way, either you couldn't or like it would be dumb, like take all your money out of your bank account, and then skateboard down the railing or whatever people do on their last days. But so and also you can't sustain it. Like you can't really think about, even if when death is real to you, like you go to a funeral or something like that, and death is very real to you, it does fade. So how can you like live each day as if it's your last? So my strategy is to recognize that I will never, ever, ever have this day again, meaning that this is, August 7th, 2024. I'm in Seattle. The weather's beautiful. I've got, David, Reza, and Michael on Zoom, and we're reading Marcus Aurelius. And if I decided to not have shiur, then I would have given up that unique opportunity, and so everything that you have today is a unique opportunity because that exact one won't happen again. And yet tomorrow it might be the same, it might be different. Maybe you'll get injured and you won't be able to walk, or you'll, or something like that, or maybe you'll like, there are these inherent opportunities, and you have to not delude yourself into thinking that like reality will accommodate your own schedule. And I think that also can be triggered, that thought can be triggered by thinking about the nature of the universe. The universe, is also subject to this law of closing, opportunities and opening opportunities. So you're a part of that as well. So I guess it does fit in. Okay. Well, speaking of limited opportunities, this is a good summer shiur experiment. All things being equal, which we don't know if they will be, I'd be open to doing this next summer as well. But I guess we'll do that when we come to it. And look, if I had time, I would do it during the year, but got other shiurim to give. It has to be a summer shiur. So, okay, thanks for coming, and until next time, whenever that is.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's not about Stoicism.
Sure.
Yeah, it's about Mishlei.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to Rabbi Gober and Rabbi Fader this week at several
Yeah.
points about the Rambams on Schar Onesh, where he compares someone who like doesn't perfect their intellect to like an animal, where like they don't receive individual hashgacha, they're just like as a species. And I was thinking that, and then he says like the real punishment is that like naturally they're just gonna like live a terrible life, if they're living that sort of lifestyle. I was thinking that, I mean, I'm sure I've heard you discuss this, but it in a way Mishlei really is the study of Schar Onesh in that way.
Yeah.
Like, at least specifically the Onesh part, because Mishlei doesn't really about hashgacha pratis, but in a way that really the Rishon are punished through Mishlei. That at least in a big way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I believe there's actually a pasuk about that I can't remember if it's in Mishlei or in Tehillim, but I remember learning with Rabbi Moskowitz that Mishlei is training you. The subject matter of Mishlei is decision making, but the training, it does give you a training in metaphysics being real to you. Because when you realize that, like you just said, that the punishment is through Mishlei principles, and that really takes you also out of the ultimate punishment, the ultimate opportunity to perfect your soul. But it also just trains you in this idea that like you're in a world where reality doesn't cater to your own whims, and people feel that, especially in areas of metaphysics and reward and punishment. So yeah. Okay, good point. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rabbi.